Welcome, families, to another episode of Thriving Special Families. I'm Crystal Sanford, your host, and I'm so honored to have today my special guest, April. Hi, April.
Hi, Crystal. How are you tonight?
I am awesome, and thank you for also providing the ASL interpretation on top of everything else.
Sure, I try to. Not a licensed interpreter, but in case, who knows, future or past, when my daughters will be like, "What was mom doing?" Oh, yeah, she was there talking with all of her friends.
Yeah,
Try to have
lovely.
them access.
That's awesome, and we're all about inclusion, so that's awesome. So, families, if you're joining us via the podcast, welcome to the Thriving Special Families family. You know that we offer insight, humor, and hope along your special needs parenting journey. If you're joining us live, then welcome as well. Feel free to add your questions or comments to the comment section, and we'll do our best to answer those tonight. So, our topic today is easy ways to support ADLs at home. And if you're not sure what ADL stands for, that's activities of daily living. So, if you're parenting a child with unique needs like I am, you might be wondering how can you foster those independent living skills while you're working with them at home? And that's what we're going to talk about today with April, our expert. Also, know, parents, that as you're joining us, the information that is shared is for your informational purposes only. If you are in need of medical or legal advice, please do contact a professional in that area. So, again, we have April, and I want to give her a proper introduction. April, and help me to pronounce your last name.
Giauque, like a jukebox.
Perfect. So, April Tribe?
Tribe, yes.
April Tribe Giauque is an awesome special needs parent. She is a ghostwriter, an editor, and an amplifying speaker, and also a podcaster. She's also a victor of domestic violence, and she's walking her healing journey. April brings your story to light through her coaching, her editing, as well as writing, and impact and influence are the results of working with April. As a keynote speaker, April addresses your educational needs, autism, deafness, inclusion, social emotional learning, domestic violence supports, writers' needs, and so much more. And then just sprinkle in there 9 children, 5 with special needs, deaf, and autism, an amazing husband, and a teacher, and you will be just scratching the surface of the life of April Tribe Giauque. So, April, we're so glad to have you, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story as a special needs parent.
Well, the journey of a special needs parent obviously starts right when, the kids are born, and they hand them to you and you're thinking, wow, I guess we're at the starting line now. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And sometimes at birth, you can tell right away that there's some challenges that might be happening.
Mhm.
Sometimes they pop up at different times.
Right.
And that's how it was for my family. So my first 3 boys all are on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
And within that spectrum, we have definitely some Asperger's. We have some intense high-functioning autism, and we have the PDD-NOS, which who knows what that is now anymore.
Yeah.
We just call them another Aspie.
There.
And for my first 3 boys, kind of going into this journey, things didn't pop up until about 1 year of age. About that time, I was thinking, this is something a little bit different, and you shouldn't really compare, but you do. You compare your other kids with your other kids. And I have enough kids to know that comparing kind of just happens naturally. So when I was watching my first, how he developed and was hitting the milestones, and then I was watching my second, not developing and not hitting the milestones, I was getting a little bit concerned, new moms, not really understanding all of the different things. Just know that I need to love them and reach forward. So that's kind of how the journey started with us. And then we kind of have a break in the story where I had to leave with my first 5 children from an abusive marriage situation. And a little bit later, started dating again, got remarried, and had number 6 and number 8, which they were born deaf. My 2 daughters that from the second marriage are born deaf. And number 8 also has autism. So again, like when we started at the beginning with my 3 boys, the autism wasn't there the first day, in the sense of manifesting itself in symptomatics, in symptom types of things or behaviors or anything like that, because they're just young babies. However, with my deaf daughters, that was more immediate. And so with that, kind of learning from the past and now bringing it into what was happening at that current time, and knowing one thing for sure is that communication had to be the key for everything that was going to be laid out. So that's just a little bit of how we got to where we are today.
Amazing, amazing, April, on so many levels. And it's just beautiful how you are able to pull in your knowledge, your expertise as a teacher, and then use that, in life, in real time with all of your children. So I'm really excited to have you share with us some tips today that you've learned along your journey with our parents. So let's define, ADLs. It's a term that is used often with those who may have some challenges. We talk about that when we have people who have, physical injuries, or with those who are maybe elderly and who need some assistance, and as well as, people of all ages who have some unique needs. And so, ADLs are defined as activities of daily living. And those activities are including just everyday life tasks like eating and dressing, showering, going to the restroom, doing, also including managing money and shopping, doing housework. So these are all skills that we, of course, as parents of kids with special needs, we want our kids to be able to do and to help improve their quality of life. But where do we start? And so, April, you have kids of all ages. How young would you say that you have begun working on these everyday life skills and activities?
So these everyday life skills, kind of thus far out of all 9, about 18 months to that 22 month of age is kind of when it starts, because they want to help. Right? I call it like, oh, we're in the helper stage. Some people say it's the terrible twos. No, really, they're trying to help.
Yeah.
They might not have the communication or the language abilities or the emotional abilities to come, to take what comes when they want to help, right? The timing might be a little off or whatever. And then they might not be able to manage their own, emotions that spike up. But really, for the most part, that's a time when they want to help. So why stifle it? If that's kind of that natural time, well, then let's join them and let's get going. Because I'll tell you what, the teenager time, no, that's too late. Too late to start there.
Yes, for sure.
Not all is lost, but
Right.
if you can do an 18-month to a 2-year-old, ooh, yeah, you can really do some awesome things. So that's kind of where we start. And for our family, because there's 11 here, kitchen, food. I mean, what a better reward than that, right? So I bring them in and we start with the cooking first off. But with the cooking comes the cleaning, right? So there's some immediate, like gratification and success right there, that they can see we've taken raw ingredients and done something to them, and now they can enjoy it. And we're not just talking about baking cookies. This is everyday dinners that happen. And for us, the Saturday morning breakfast, because that's when I'm home to really, focus in on doing like some more cooking or what have you. But that's really the key point. And so I'm a teacher of the deaf, and my students, most of them have autism. That's how they sign it down here, AU. Okay. This is really the other sign, but AU down here in Texas, because Texas is just, I don't know, weird. Anyway, the point is I show my students, who are all adults, they're 19 to 21 through that 21st birthday.
Okay.
I show them all these little videos that I've made of my own kids, in these really young settings,
Mhm.
peeling potatoes, chopping
Mhm.
with a knife. And many times I'm watching my students' response to watching these little kids use these different tools.
Yeah.
And at first they're like, why are you allowing them to use the knife? Like, well, I taught them first how,
Mhm.
and they're excited to join. Like, I've never done, and then list the things that they've never touched or done. And I'm like,
Wow.
well, that all changes in my class.
Mhm.
Welcome.
That's
So,
awesome.
but I try to show and emphasize that it's just part of life. We call it at home chore therapy, right?
Mhm.
Because there were so many things, so many activities from occupational therapists as well as the speech therapists, which for our family were our two highest therapy needs.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at all of the activities and the things that we need to add in, and I'm like, oh, that's a skill we can do with mixing. We got to cross the midline. Oh, well, we're wiping towel. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, where can I kill 50 birds with one stone?
I love it. That's
Like,
really
I can't
smart.
take all this time
Right.
to do this isolated therapy and
Mhm.
this isolated therapy, because what we all know is that if you try to do isolation, your therapy in isolation,
Yeah.
the generality of the skills usually doesn't take place.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's cut that out, and put it all into, so again, into the cooking. How much
Mhm.
communication can happen in the cooking? Well, a lot.
Oh, yeah.
WH questions. How,
Oh,
what, where, when, why, how. Oh my goodness. Again and again and again and again. What do you
mhm.
think is going to happen next? How do you think this will mix together?
Mhm.
So the language base is right there.
Right.
And like I said, with OT,
Mhm.
strengthening their hands,
Mhm.
their eye-hand coordination, measuring, looking at things, cutting safely. Ow, ow,
Mhm.
ow. Right? So that for me was like this aha moment. And I had started with my first three boys in that way, and just continued onward, because I don't have the time to. When people say you have nine children, how do you do it all? I'm like, we look at what's going to be happening every day,
Mhm.
look at what the needs are, and say, wow, well, that activity matches all together. So that can work, that can work, that can work. And that's really the secret of how we do what we can do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Parents, if you're just joining us, again, you are watching another episode and listening to another episode of Thriving Special Families. And I'm your host, Crystal Sanford. Our topic today is activities of daily living and how to teach and support those for our children with special needs right in the home. And we've got a great expert today, April Tribe Giauque. And she is an author, she is a speaker, and she's a special needs mom, giving us some tips today. Also know that our show is sponsored by Sanford Autism Consulting, where you can receive special education advocacy and help your child access the education that they deserve. So, April, you've just shared something so powerful and yet so simple. It's that these therapies that so many of our kids engage in are not just to be isolated, but somehow woven in to the daily routine. And then when that happens, that's really where you see your child thrive, and you see those skills really get cemented, into their skill set. And being a speech pathologist by trade, I've spent over 20 years working with families, and I can say that that's totally true. When you've seen those things that you've worked on in therapy, actually worked on at home, actually implemented with the family in another context, and with more repetition than you could ever do in a therapy room, that's really where you see the kids get those skills. So you're really spot on with that. I could totally agree.
Well, thank you. I it's hope I don't lose my computer there. Sorry. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it came down to time, and we
Mhm.
needed to make sure we were working on the things that we could see, and working closely with in a school setting where we have speech therapists and occupational therapists there right on at the school, and their caseloads are incredible, but
Right.
they're right there to ask. I just started to inquire, what can I add in my everyday classroom? What could I
Mhm.
do? And so, prior to going out for recess, we'd make sure that we were as centered as possible, go out, have fun, and then when we came back in, do another kind of centering exercise to be ready, because it just diminished the time. We
Mhm.
were having to do, lots of behavior supports. Why not take the 1 minute prior and the 1 minute after? And that saves you 20 minutes in the long run. Again, looking to figure out, what do we need to do? And it's not, for me, it just became kind of a natural blend for what was going to be happening during the day. And so learning these types of skills in different classroom settings, adding them more into the home, it would just, like I said, I don't think my teacher hat really ever goes off. It just, it's like, oh, let's see. Okay,
Right.
we can do that.
I can imagine. Yeah, it's always on in some way, but sounds like you've found a way to make it fun and to make it just blend naturally into your family routine. So, April, what other tips? So far, we know that building these activities in and using it, especially in the kitchen and in cooking, can really be helpful. What other tips do you have for families, parents who want to help their child improve in their independent skills and their activities of daily living?
The second best thing that we ever did was they always go to the grocery stores with us,
Mm,
and different tasks for different types of things, and ages as well. So, like for example, if we're going to the store, it might sound kind of boring, but I usually have kind of a same type of grocery list that we can make a variety of things from. But I've taken pictures, the labels off of cans, whatever it is that I need, and put them on a big ring. And that on that ring, we'll talk about what are we going to get prior to going to the store. A lot of this is prep work, and many times it's in the car prep. I don't create a lesson plan before we go to the store or anything, but I kind of know what it is that we're going to need. We've made a list. I've got my ring of things that we're going to be looking for, and depending on their age, I'll hand them a few pictures on those rings, and it's their responsibility to help us find it, make sure that it matches, right? So we've got picture identification, we've got communication happening right there. And then we're looking, with my older kids, we're looking at the price. How much is that? They've got their phones or devices and they're putting it in. And I have someone doing a running tally before we get to actually purchase, how close we're going to be. This is the budget that we have. And so it kind of varies. Obviously, I'm not going to expect my 2-year-old to know all of these bigger concepts, but I am going to note and say, do we have enough or not enough? That concept of, oh, that becomes part of the budget, as opposed to mom or dad won't let me have, and then they have the grievance list, right? It's more like, oh, I can understand. If
yeah.
we only have this much, we don't have enough, or
Mhm.
we have enough. So again, you kind of scale on what we can do. Again, as the older kids, the exchange of money, having a little bit of cash so they can practice with that. And I know today a lot of us are leaving that cashless society. I still do a lot of that when we're doing our shopping, because I'm trying to have them understand the value and exchange of what money is, how the budget works, and why. Again, as they get older with their own bank accounts,
Mhm.
and explaining, oh, sorry, you don't have enough. What are you going to do? Well, I'm going to ask you for the money.
Right?
Like,
Exactly what
I'm
that is.
sorry, I don't have it either.
Uh-huh.
Like, like, so maybe a different option. And it's hard. I'm not going to say like, it's a little bit easier as the teacher, because I'm like, yeah, I don't pay for that. My
Mhm.
own kid, they're like, like, sorry, I just don't have it. And to
Right.
show them in sometimes the black and white, that's
Mhm.
helpful,
Mhm.
and not to shame it or anything. It's just like, that's what it is. So maybe next week we'll look at, how the budget is, or maybe I'll get a different, I don't know, like a coaching client. I might pay that next week. And so we might have a little bit more than we were thinking. So where could we budget that? How can
Mhm.
we save it? And so that's the other added piece: cooking, going shopping, setting up the budget prior to. And then for us, the last thing is the laundry.
Oh, it's
At
laundry.
one time, we were doing 22 loads a week.
Wow. That is amazing.
And I think that the washer and dryer did not quit. They didn't break down, and they
Wow.
kept on a tumbling.
Yeah.
Because that was tough, right? Bedwetting, sick at night,
Mhm.
clothes,
Oh, yeah.
11 people. It was like our
Mhm.
own bed and breakfast
Yeah.
that never ended.
Open
So
24 hours.
24 hours, right. So, and we had one day to fold and separate, and we had to kind of use that as that idea of how you wanted your clothes to look was how you were going to care for them. So
Mhm.
I did a lot of the kind of prep and laundry. Now as they got older, they
Mhm.
were better with the chemicals.
Okay.
You know, eh,
Gotta be careful with
there's
that.
a learning curve with that.
I bet. Yeah. You're not letting the
Oh,
two-year-old
I
do the
did.
bleach.
Right. I put the whole bleach in.
Yeah.
No, no. Oh well. Okay. Well,
You didn't like
all
that shit.
right. Right. So we'll go revisit that budget for the clothing in a minute. But, taking that time to do that accounting and, putting it together, and with the four, what we call the four littles that are kind of, they're under age 10 and they're still kind of working on things.
Mhm.
They have the job of the separating and the matching of the socks, right?
Love it. That's
Because
good.
that's super fun
Yeah.
with all these feet and toes.
It could be
But
awesome.
they're getting it together, and my one daughter was like, "Do I have to match it perfectly?" And I said, "How about this? You just match by the size." She's like, "Okay." So she just took together the size, and my older girls were like, "Awesome," because they hated matching socks anyway. I guess that's the fashion. So it was a
Oh,
win-win.
that worked.
Great. The only thing that had to match was my husband's. It's
All
like,
right. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
give me a pink one with a black one. Like, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the only rule on that part. But
Okay.
yeah, so, those three are big kinds of economy skills that need to work for those independent life skills
Yeah.
that really set a foundation that you can really begin to move even more, onward from there.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I can see parents of neurotypical kiddos who are saying, "Man, I got to start teaching my kids to do some of this as well." These are just fundamental skills for all children. I think as parents of children with unique needs, sometimes I think we hone in on it more because we're always thinking about their future, how are things going to be for them as they get older. So maybe we're thinking about independent living skills a little bit sooner or putting a little bit more attention there. But I think it's beneficial for all kids. So these are wonderful tips. I just want to share, we have some guests who are watching. We have Peggy who said that, wow, what you talked about is, especially like with the shopping and such things, helps with problem solving skills as well.
Exactly. We love the problem solving skills because if you're teaching your kids how to do that idea of problem solving,
Mhm.
they have to then really think through it.
Yeah.
And if they come up with a solution and you're kind of like, oh, that's like, there's a better way.
Yes.
Sometimes you just have to allow that solution that they came up with and they can reap the natural rewards from it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Other times, there's some more questions that could be added to kind of help pull them through, but really we need to teach them how to think through that. So this kind of goes on a little bit of an example. With my teaching, we are out in the community all the time and they use the public buses.
Mhm.
And sometimes, even though this is a wonderful device, it can become very distracting. And unfortunately, there's been many students where they've caught the right bus, they know the time, they set in the text, they can see it's coming in 10 minutes, there it arrives, they sit down, and they get lost in something on their phone. And they miss their next bus stop. By the time they look up, they're like, oh no, they usually hop off the bus, they go to the busing queue, and it will have a text number there per bus stop. You text that in, and it will show you when the next bus is going to arrive. But if you don't know where you're at because you've missed your bus stop, we've also taught them how to use the app for the metro and things like that so that they can then problem solve. And of course, we just don't huck them out there in the city and be like, good luck. Many of them have that shadow and accommodating, job coach that will
Mhm.
usually fade.
Mhm.
But we're usually prepared on that first 2 or 3 week fade out the problem is going to arise, and it does happen, but I'll tell you, they learn really fast with that,
Yeah.
and they never miss it again.
Mhm.
They're more like this now.
Okay. At least the check.
And that's right, and they're checking
Yeah.
so much better. And
Mhm.
there's some natural things like that they are the best way to learn.
Yeah.
So parents, pick your battles on some of those problem solving skills to think, you know what, we can survive this week if we messed up on the size of milk or something. We'll just kind of deal with it, and when it runs out on Thursday and shopping's not till Saturday, maybe we'll just have to make some pancakes
How about
because we
that?
don't have the milk. What are we
Right.
going to do?
Wow.
It's just pick your battles.
Yeah. No, natural consequences. My husband always talks about that. Well, then so be it. If something happens, that he said if they do that one time and it hurts, they won't do it again, will they? They'll learn.
That's
So
right.
more of a dad response, but it's true. I feel like in some cases, like you said, learning from those natural consequences can definitely sometimes cause some real good learning and some learning that will last, that will stick. Um, we have another guest who's watching who says, thanks for sharing all this great information. This person is working in a middle school setting, and so this is super helpful for middle schoolers. So thanks so much. I want to turn toward, in our last few minutes together, I want to turn toward that parent, because we kind of alluded to this at the beginning. What about the parent who does have a teenager, who have that, like the kids in your education class, who are 19? Maybe they haven't much emphasis as they wish they would have on ADLs, activities of daily living. What can those parents do? Because you said in the beginning that it's not too late. What can those parents do who want to help those children become as independent as possible?
Well, for me, I highly recommend an end goal or a deadline, right? Where
Mhm.
we're going to say, by this time frame, you're going to be this old, and these are the things that you're going to need to know how to do. So
Mhm.
we can break it down, and I'm here to support you with that. We've got 18 months to learn how to do these 3 skills.
Mhm.
I don't want to. I don't want to. It's real simple. Wi-Fi technology can be limited. You're still the parent. You're still paying for that, and as long as it doesn't involve with the education timing, those things can be limited. You have to find a place where they're pinched. I know that might sound terrible, but you really have to find a place that pinches them, that are like, I don't want to lose that. That I enjoy that. Well, in order for some motivation to kind of happen, I know if I feel a little pinched like that, I'm gonna keep working, and we're all in that way. You might only have 3 sick days a year in your job, right? Could afford you, and you might just be that one day like, I'm just not going in. That's fine. That took a day, and if you make those decisions more than 3 times, then it's going to start to impact on your paycheck. That's just how it goes. So you find those pinch that might be like, I need to learn this a little bit better, and find out what motivates them, and remind them that the independence that they're seeking for and desiring, and you don't want to be hounding them. You show me these skills, and how you can do them successfully, then they gain back more of the independence. And I have what I call a lifer with me. He's 21. His autism and his schizophrenia probably won't permit him to be completely independent, so
Mhm.
we're still teaching a lot of life skills at this time. And his cooking skills are there, his laundry skills are there, his hygiene, personal hygiene, great. Now his personal exercises, he has his work that he does. So all these things are great. Our toughest time is the money, as far as the balancing of that,
Mhm.
because no matter what, the answer is $20. Oh, bless him. so so we kind of have to keep working through that part. But his motivation is definitely, I want to become more independent. And we got him a bike, so he could kind of do more exploring outside versus the driver's license, because he's not quite yet
Mhm.
ready for something like that.
Mhm.
And just started with a device to learn how to use Uber and Lyft services.
Oh, okay.
So, those were some of those ideas of, if you learn these types of skills, here's some more independent opportunities for you. in our rural area, we don't have the bus system. We have to get into the city for that. So, Uber and Lyft is another option where, he's shown that independence where he can now, go out for a 2-hour outing and return back because he knows how to tell his time. And so you just kind of see where your kiddos at. And if you don't want them to live with you forever, then teach them how they can live independently. It really comes back to that, because love it or not, we don't live forever. We just don't. So
that's right.
Start teaching them.
It's awesome. So true. So true. And as much as sometimes it feels like, oh, it's just so easier to do it myself, you will see in the long run as a parent how rewarding it will be for you, and such a confidence builder for your child when they're able to do some of these skills on their own. So that's great, and I think it's never too late, like you said. My last question is going to be, what if we have kiddos who are more impacted? Let's say we have kids who are significantly challenged by autism or by whatever it might be, physically, cognitively. What is it that these kiddos can do? I know I can remember working in for 4 years in a high school, and I loved working in the classroom with these high school kiddos who, cognitively were not high schoolers per se, but they had skills too, and they went out as well and doing the community time, and they cleaned tables. I mean, so I'm a firm believer that everyone can learn. Everyone has a skill set that they can use to some capacity, even if they have to do it hand over hand with an adult. They still, I believe, can develop some of these activities of daily living. So what would you say for parents who are parenting kiddos who are more significantly impacted?
I would say set an expectation and set it with a time to know, like you were talking about, if it is as significant as a hand over hand activity, then set a time for it, a half hour, 45 minutes of whatever task or skill. And maybe that happens 3 times a day or whatever. I'm just grabbing an example. But the concept and the idea is, inside we have a really strong spirit of survival out of wanting to do things. And because we might be limited physically or limited with how autism functions within us, it still doesn't mean that they should be, put to the side and just entertained or fed the electronic, stuff all day long. Because that'll pacify anybody. It's not about pacifying. It's about what are they going to be able to do. And you start where you're at, and maybe possibly with some therapy and with some supports. I would not recommend you doing this by yourself. I would recommend getting into a group, a cohort, something. Maybe you have a local chapter around you, and then you, as the adult, can gain some supports for yourself, as well as maybe there's 1 or 2 that they're going to go do an activity together, or maybe through FaceTime they show, look, I folded something today. I wanted to show you. And, feel that sense of pride. We all have a sense of accomplishment and pride that we take when we're working like that. And so, that's just one idea. There's many different things, but set an expectation, follow through on the timing, and be as consistent as possible. And that really will give them that idea of, I have value, I have worth, and look what I can produce.
That's beautiful. I love that. I have value, I have worth. And that kind of goes along with what Peggy is sharing. She's saying, let them get as close as they can to reaching those goals, regardless of kind of where their skills are. And so I agree. It gives them a sense of value, worth. We all want that, as individuals. So this has been an awesome conversation about activities of daily living and how to build those skills right into our home and our home daily routines. It's just been an awesome time in sharing and learning from April Tribe Giauque, who is an expert in this area. April, what if we have parents who want to learn more about, I think you said your coaching services, your book? How can they reach out to you?
They can reach out to me. I'm on Facebook, wherever you see me there. My email address is april@apriltribe.com. My website is apriltribegiauque.com. And so I've got services and supports there for parents, for any kind of special needs. I've got, different types of curriculums that we've developed over the years. And really it's all about, where is your kiddo at and where do you want them to be, and see what their input is as well, and see if together that we can make it that team effort, because their value and worth is just like any of us. We want those same types of things. So I welcome any questions. I have a YouTube channel, and you can jump on that and see kind of our little journey with my daughter Rosie, and kind of her progress over the years and what she's done. Like, there was one time where she decided to do some coloring and painting all over the walls. And so we had to bring out the paint, and she had to wash it down and then repaint the walls. And it was really interesting to see the comments. Many people were like, "Oh, you were such an awful mom. I can't believe it." You just kind of go, well, she has never done that again. So, live and learn. And others were like, okay, that's great. Or, oh, I wouldn't have the time or the patience. I'd probably grab the paintbrush and do it myself. And, it's what is the result that you want?
Yes.
So maybe that's something to kind of think about.
Yeah, I love that. It's a nice thinking moment there. So thank you again, April. This has been awesome. And thank you those who are listening and watching in another episode of Thriving Special Families. If you are in need of educational assistance, please feel free always to reach out to us at info@sdautismhelp.com so that we can help to support you in your child's educational journey and building in some of these independent and life skills into your child's IEP, because we're here to help you do that. So again, I'm Crystal Sanford, and families, always remember, you're going to be okay, and your child is going to be okay too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.